We are live. Hello, everyone.
Good
Happy
morning.
Saturday. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Candid Conversations with K and K. I am Kimberly Coleman, aka Sister Girl Speaks, and right next to me, is my podcast sister, Karen K. Renee, as she is known. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, my sister.
How are
Happy
you?
Happy Patriot Day. I know what this day signifies for you personally.
Yeah.
Happy Patriot Day to all of our viewing audience all over the world. And it's good to be back with you, all of
Yes.
you.
Yes. Yes.
We took a summer break because we did
Yes.
some things this summer. But again, it's great to be back in this chair with my sister. So
Mhm.
welcome.
It is great to be back. And we are going to be commemorating, we know today is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we're going to be talking about that. We have a special guest, Captain Gail Harris, the United States Navy retired, and she's going to talk to us about that day, and I'm going to tell you about my experience on that day. Of course, Kay Renee. Kay, tell us what you did over the summer, some of the things you did over the summer that.
I can't believe. Well, to me, summer's not over yet, Kay,
Yeah.
because summer officially ends and another season begins on a certain person's birthday coming up in September, coming up
Who
this
is
month.
that
We
person?
we won't say who it is, but let me just say this, ladies and gents, it is Virgo season, and y'all know me. I'm a birthday girl, so yes, my birthday is coming up in a few weeks. But a lot of actually, I was very quiet, but one particular thing happened to me this summer, and I'll talk about that towards the end of our broadcast because we have a special segment towards the end called "Let's Get Candid for a Moment." So I'll be getting candid towards the end of this episode.
We will. We will. Um, I know Kay Renee did some traveling, a little traveling to Vegas. Did you play
Yes,
my
it did.
quarter? Did I win any money from that quarter that you played for me?
Well, you know what? I got to give you your half. I did. I only won 50 bucks. See, when I gamble in Vegas, I only play. And
Uh,
actually, I have to thank my godmother because before I left, she said, "Here, baby, here's a little something, something." So
okay.
she gave me the exact amount that I won. So I had to give you half
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
But no, I
Okay.
did go
Okay.
to Vegas. That's right. I did go to Vegas at the end of August, and it was hot as HE double L two sticks, right? As they say back in the day in childhood. Got sunburned.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
rare that we get sunburned. I got sunburned right here on my nose.
Yeah.
We
That's why
went
everybody puts
to
that. Yeah.
right. We went to see my girlfriend, and I. We saw. Oh, I would highly, 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 highly recommend if you go to Vegas, you've got to see Cirque du
You see.
Soleil's. Oh,
Oh,
it is
yes. It is amazing.
amazing,
It is amazing.
amazing.
It is amazing.
And then I
It is
went to and
amazing.
got a massage. Now this is
Right.
something I share with the audience. I've gotten a lot of massages in my life, but this is the first masseuse was a man. How about that?
Oh my. Okay.
That's why I
Okay.
said, "Oh my, indeed."
Oh, I have a whole nother story about that. We'll talk about that
Yes.
on another show. Glad you
Okay.
had a good summer. And if you all see me glancing from now and then, I'm just looking at my phone to see comments and everything. So that's why I do that. But the other thing I want to say is I'm glad that you're safe and you had a good time and you were able to get away because we haven't been able to do that during this
No.
quarantine, even though we're still
No.
in a pandemic and we're asking everybody to be careful, do what you need to do to be safe. And if you can,
Amen.
please get the vaccine. There are new variants coming out. And if we don't get a hold of these variants, then other variants are going to mutate. And so we really have to get a handle on
Absolutely.
this. So if you're able to, please go get the vaccine. And our
And
children are
and
getting
and
it at
if you
record rates now.
and wear the damn mask. Now I
Wear
don't
the
know in
mask.
Oklahoma, we're in
Yeah.
Chicago, in the city of Chicago. There in the state of Illinois, there is a mask mandate if you're inside. So don't let's
Right.
not be stupid, ladies and gents. Wear the mask,
Right.
and that's one thing I will share with you, Kim. That when I traveled, it was totally different. You saw a photo of me on Facebook. I had the face shield, the mask on the
Hmm.
plane.
Hmm.
When I went to the airport, I felt like I was going for the first time in my life. Totally
Yeah.
surreal. But I value me and I value others. So please, people, wear the damn mask when asked to. Okay?
And what's scary about this right now is that a record number of children are getting this.
Yes.
And this is what's bothering me. So, as I said on a previous podcast I was on, we are responsible for the generations behind us. We are responsible for those children. God has given us those children and made us responsible for them. So let us hold that precious cargo that God has given us and let us take care of it. Let's
Amen.
honor God by doing that. There's a record number of children in Texas that have this, and they don't have to. So I'm not going to get on a tangent right now because we have a guest that's waiting. I'll just tell a little bit about what I did this summer. I went to go
Mm-hmm.
visit my folks, saw them for the first time in a year and a half in
Yay.
Arizona. That was great.
Yay.
Yeah. And I did a commercial that's still airing
Yes, she
here in
did.
Oklahoma. Now, this is what's
Yay.
funny. Yesterday, I get into an Uber and a lady looks at me. And, I'm here in Oklahoma City because I don't know if if they look because I'm black or, so I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have to start something. And she goes, and I have my mask on. She goes,
Right.
were you in that Sooner commercial? I'm like, yes. How do you recognize me? But anyway, so that's funny. And then I did a play called Shaking the Mess Out of
Yes.
Misery,
Yes.
and that went very well. And I have to say this, it was produced by a Black woman, directed by a Black woman, and we had 9 Black women. And let me tell you something, and this is a testament to hard work and prayer. We had not one drama incident, not one,
Wow. That's
not
wonderful.
one. It went off smoothly. It was executed great. It was on time. We sold
Mm-hmm.
a record amount of tickets, and it was one of the best experiences I ever had.
You know what
So
that's
coming,
that you know what that's called, Kim? That's
well,
divine ordained.
it
That's
was,
what that
it
is called.
was,
You
it was, and
understand?
we prayed
Yes.
and we had stage hands, some young white young men, and they were stage hands, and they would see us praying before each performance, and they didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like, okay. So, but it was a great performance, and then I auditioned for Streetcar Named Desire, and I will be in that production at the beginning. So, well, rehearsals start next month. This is going to be interesting. As I was telling my brother and sister-in-law this morning, I did plays in Chicago, I did plays in DC, and of course this play. This will be the first time I've done a play with a Caucasian, with Caucasian people, white people, and I'm the only Black in the play. So this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be
Well,
very interesting. I look forward
I
to
will
it.
be praying. We'll be praying with
Thank you,
you,
thank
and
you.
I know you're going to. I'm telling you, you heard it here first, ladies and gents. I'm waiting for when they announce, the Emmy, the Tony, and of course, that gold statue called Oscar to Miss Kimberly A. Coleman. So,
Thank you,
I'm just very proud of you. You're truly living your
thank
dreams,
you.
and Kim, your life and what you're going through in this, or what you're doing in this season of your life, is a testament of what you can do in your life. It doesn't matter what age you are, and
Right,
definitely for our guests, because we're
right,
gonna talk about it. Because I'm just so proud of this woman, that what she's
right.
doing in this season of her life is just nothing short of amazing.
And I'm going to bring her up in a minute. There is an article on our Facebook page about women who are restarting their lives in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So I want you all to read that
Yes.
article. We're trying to get the author of that article on our show. So I'm going to let you introduce our next guest, and I'm going to bring her
Oh
up.
goodness. Well, ladies and gents, let me just say this. I have had the opportunity to know this beautiful woman for 15 years. But for those who don't, let me give you some history on Captain Gail Harris. First of all, former United States naval officer, and was the highest ranking female African American in the U.S. Navy upon her retirement in 2001. She served as the first female intelligence officer in a Navy aviation squadron in 73. In 79, Miss Gale, Captain Gale, became the first female and African American instructor at the Armed Forces Intelligence Training Center in Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado. In 99, she became the first female and African American to lead the intelligence department for Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron in Rota, Spain, the largest aviation squadron. And when she was the highest ranking African American naval intelligence officer. And not only that, she's just a wonderful, she's my shero. You know, anytime when her and I've had conversations about anything and everything, I mean everything, ladies and gents, Gail has been, that's a private joke between her and I, but Gail has been nothing short of just a beautiful, well-rounded, spiritual woman. And I'm just so grateful to call not only my shero, but she is one of my dearest friends. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round woosah to Captain Gail Harris, United States Navy, retired.
Yes.
Woohoo!
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Karen.
Welcome.
I gotta say, Karen is very accomplished too. And there are those people, and I'm sure we've all had that experience when you meet them. It's like instant sisterhood, like you've known each other before for a very long time. And Karen, that's what I most treasure about our relationship. We could have not talked for 2 years, and then when we do, we pick up right where we left off. That's a blessing and a miracle.
Absolutely.
It is. It is.
And she's known me through the good, through the bad, and definitely the ugly.
But isn't
So,
that not the
you know,
story of all of our lives? We all have the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
we
Captain
we
Harris,
do.
first of all, we want to thank you for your time. Um, Before we
Yes.
get into what happened to you on that day, what are your feelings and emotions about this day? What does it bring for you?
A lot of sadness. I've had the TV off most of yesterday and today because it's still very painful. When you're in the military, you're a family. So even if you don't personally know people who die, it hurts. And then also, you want to protect the American public. And the fact that so many American civilians died too is just very, very painful. Very
Yeah.
painful.
Talk to us about that day for you.
Well, I was in Washington, D.C. To attend a meeting. I was working on the cybersecurity issue, and I was in town to get some money for the program. And I was meeting a pre meeting with two other people, and we were supposed to meet in the Pentagon to make sure we had all our ducks lined up, and we were going to make the most important points because it's kind of like a one shot deal. Come in once and talk to us, and if they like it, they'll give you money. If not, and so Toby, the guy, the third person, his father was a general. So he said, I'll borrow my dad's car, Gail, and that way we can park in a good spot in the Pentagon because the Pentagon parking lot is huge. And he knew his way around that maze. We'll go meet with Terry, and then we'll go over to the third location for a meeting. Now, Toby was normally very on time, but this one day he was ditzing around, and I kept saying, Toby, Toby, Toby. And finally, it was so late, we were not going to be able to do the pre-meeting, so I didn't call Terry, the third person at the Pentagon, because I figured, well, she'd know and meet us at our location. And Terry later said she just picked up her purse. She figured out what was going on when the plane hit, and 10 people around her were killed. So if Toby had been on time as he normally was, I would have been right in the Pentagon where the plane hit.
Did that plane hit the E ring or what was that, the A or the E?
You
Do
know,
you know?
I don't know which ring it hit. That place is so huge.
I
But
think
one
it
of the
was the A.
tragedies that I think that there were 125 people killed, and out of that, there were 8 people killed in the naval intelligence. Think of it as a newsroom for the chief of naval operations,
Hmm.
his intelligence staff, and
Hmm.
8 people died
Yeah. I,
instantly, apparently.
yes, ma'am. They were working on what was going on in New York. As soon as that happened in New York, that group of people started working on back intelligence to find out who was responsible for what happened in New York.
Exactly. Because before, as I was walking out of the building where Toby was, I'd walked by a TV and I saw the plane hit the tower in New York. And my first thought, I think like many, uh-oh, tragic accident. And then when I was
Mhm.
in my car, I was not far from the Pentagon, I saw smoke coming from behind. And of all people, I had on Tom Joyner. And Tom
Yeah,
Joyner,
yeah,
but I did
yeah,
not expect to
yeah.
do intelligence. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack."
Hmm.
And I spent most of the day stuck in traffic trying to get back to my hotel. And, it was very surreal. But the interesting part is that's when you begin to see the strength of the American public because
Hmm.
everybody did everything they could to help, even little things. They had closed down the national parks, but as we sat in gridlock, they kept the restrooms open. So
Yeah,
some of us are, after being stuck
yeah,
in the car,
yeah,
the police
Exactly.
were nice. There were little fender benders as people were trying to enter and get off of the freeways, and the police were nice. No accidents reports, at least, that I'm aware of. And people were willing to just do anything for each other to bring comfort to each other.
you never want another 9/11 to happen, but that feeling of togetherness was so wonderful at that time. You felt like nobody was Democrat or Republican, even black or white, that we were all in it together.
No, when
Um,
terrorists attack, they don't say
yeah,
they're only going to kill Republicans or
right.
Democrats or ethnic
Yes, ma'am.
minorities.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. On that day, I was working in Arlington, Virginia. I worked for the Department of Defense, and I'm not going to belabor this, but they were doing renovations in the Pentagon. And the Wednesday before that, I had gone to a meeting about those renovations. Because they were doing renovations, there were a group of us that worked as satellite offices. So we were in Arlington, in Alexandria. Some of us were in Arlington. The place that the office used to be was where that plane hit. The
Wow.
meeting that I
Wow.
had gone to that Wednesday was where that plane hit. So that morning, I was going to go, that morning, I was going to call in sick. But I just told Kay Renee I did not, because I said to myself, Kim, you got to go to the Pentagon this morning because you got to work on a people with disabilities display. Saw the first two planes hit, and after the first plane hit, I talked to my coworker who was kind of in charge of the display I was going to do at the Pentagon. She was frustrated with me because I had been procrastinating. She said, Kim, are you going to the Pentagon today? I said, Denise, I'm on my way to the Pentagon. Hung up the phone, second plane hit, and then subsequently heard the plane hit the Pentagon. So my procrastination for once in my life worked, and me being nosy watching what was going on CNN. So that's my story for that day.
And the interesting thing I found out later, as I'm sure you all both did, there were many stories like that. People who normally weren't late to work at the World Trade Center were, kids sick at home.
Right.
Uh, it's amazing, and it's still very hard to wrap your mind around that. Why some lived and some didn't, and I think that's where my spiritual belief comes in, and you gain strength from that.
Absolutely.
Did you have a question, Kay Renee?
Well, Well, no, I wanted to just share my story of what happened because I'll never forget that day. Unlike both you and Gail, you were on the East Coast in the Pentagon. I was here in Chicago, and I was still married at the time, and I was about to come in my office in Hyde Park here on the South Side of Chicago when my mother called and said, "Babe, something has happened." And she said, I said, "What, Mom?" And she said, "We just heard the news about the plane hitting one of the towers." So when I went upstairs to check in my desk, my former audit director said, "Karen, he had the TV on CNN because our offices were like they were renovated from a home. So we were in the kitchen watching this, and then he was like, 'I think maybe you should go home and be with your family.'" Because I just could not believe. I said, "What the heck is going on?" And then, of course, here in Chicago, everybody was trying to get to where they should be because we didn't know what was going on. And I had lived downtown at the time, and I was married at the time, and we were just glued to the television, finding out what is really going on here. And to me, two dates that you don't forget: December 7th and then 9/11.
Right.
And what has changed so much? And I wanted to ask you, Gail, because by you being in intelligence, what has
Mm-hmm.
changed in your mind
Mm-hmm.
for the better, and what has changed your mind for the worse since 9/11,
You
in
mean
your
in terms
opinion?
of the efficiency of the intelligence community?
Yes.
The thing that's interesting is that, and I think it was 1996 when Osama bin Laden declared war or jihad war in the United States. So, as an intelligence professional, the threat of terrorism is always there. And there were lots of victories and successes in thwarting terrorist attacks. So it's something, as an intelligence professional, at least in my generation, you had a calendar on your desk like many people, but it was different. It had the
Mm-hmm.
anniversaries of previous terrorist attacks because terrorists
Mm-hmm.
frequently want to do something to commemorate an earlier attack. So we always knew that terrorism was a problem, and it was always brought up in terms of when you were thinking. And there are many, many things that can hurt national security interest. So that was one of
Mm-hmm.
many threats. For instance, cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it happened, was very, very devastating, but not surprising, an act of terrorism in itself. You work very hard to
Mm-hmm.
prevent this. When I wrote a book about this, I was so frustrated because of the criticism of the intelligence community. Not that they criticized, but most of the criticism was uninformed. Like the point about the intelligence community not sharing information. The problem was not that we didn't share information. The amount of information the intelligence community collects, generally speaking, is classified, but it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, an article was written for Foreign Affairs by one of the directors of national intelligence, and he said every 24 hours, the intelligence community collects 1 billion pieces of information. Again, this is a 2007 figure. It's much higher now, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure. And that same
Right.
year, I went to a conference that the intelligence community sponsored, asking for help from the academic and uh, the industry. And the point a senior official made was, out of all the information that's collected, the amount that's actually hands-on looked at by a human being was something like 1/10 million. So it wasn't that
Wow.
in all the intelligence agencies, we send, as we're collecting information, we send the reports to each other. The sharing of information comes up the way it should be done. And this is something the naval intelligence specialized in, was checking with your peers. All the intelligence agencies have specialties. For the naval intelligence, it's all source analysis because ships at sea don't have the capacity, generally speaking, even at least up in that era, to have huge amount of information. So they
Mm-hmm.
expected their intelligence support to alert them and keep them posted. So the way it would work, I'd come in first thing in the morning to begin my shift, and I'd say, "Kim, Have you seen anything, interesting that I should be aware of? And you say yes or no. I'd say, Karen, call up Karen. Karen, have you seen this? That's kind of what's going because of all the information that comes in. Sometimes you need, if somebody in another organization thinks it's significant, they should pick you up. The example that I use when speaking on this topic, remember the plane that was going into Detroit and the young African man had explosives in his
In
underwear?
the shoes.
I
Oh, in the
remember
underwear.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Uh-huh.
underwear. And so the way that would work, apparently his father went to the CIA in this country and said, I think my teenage son is a terrorist. And so the way something with that would work, I would get see this report and I call up, hey, Karen, did you see this where this successful banker in this country got in touch with the CIA and says he thinks his son is a terrorist? Aren't all teenagers terrorists? Your parents think that they're bad. And then you maybe look at it, and that would be about it. And then if there are reports about where they're putting explosives, I go to a male colleague. I said, "Do you think a man would put explosives in his underwear?" So you're just exchanging, talking about,
Right, right,
and
right,
then you
right.
dig deeper. You dig deeper, and that's what they meant. That type of sharing out of all the information that's coming in, bringing it to the other agency's attention and sharing it so you can dig deeper into that. One other example that I use, and there's nothing I'm saying here that's classified.
Right,
A
of
lot of
course.
it I put in my book that was
Of
approved
course.
by the military security. I was in my second assignment. Think of it, I was the news agency for the U.S. 7th Fleet. That's a good way to put it. I mean, I was responsible for, we stood 24/7 watches, and the young watch officer in your 20s, you headed the team, think of it as a news team, and you put out spot flash news reports, daily reports, and on what was happening in your theater of operations. And it was the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean. So one day I got a report. The submarine forces of all nations, they call it the silent service because when they're on operational missions, they don't communicate. They want to stay stealthy. So one day, and the other thing people don't realize, and this was in the 70s, the Soviet Union kept two submarines off our west coast and two off of our east armed with nuclear tipped ballistic missiles. So those submarines were always on the lookout, tracking them so in case the Cold War went hot. So one day, one of these submarines communicated. And then
Really?
shortly after that, they surfaced. And so here it was on me, young 20 something, to let 7th Fleet know should they destroy it or, what's going on here? Are they getting ready to attack us? And so I got back to 7th Fleet and I, after checking, I called it first off in terms of geopolitical tensions at the time. There was nothing going on to cause an escalation in tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. I got in touch with NSA. You can learn a lot about what a nation is or is not doing with their military forces by monitoring the communications. And the Soviet Union was not in a high alert state, as both any nation, if you're getting ready to do something, you kind of get into a higher state of readiness. And so I got in touch with 7th Fleet. I said, I believe it's either a medical emergency or a maintenance problem. And they said, why do you say that? I said, well, they don't have to surface to launch their missiles. They can launch their missiles without surfacing. And they said, don't you think they know we know that? Could they be trying to keep us off guard? I said, I think not,
Wow.
because I see aircraft and Navy ships coming to that location, which
Wow.
reinforces my estimate that this is a medical or maintenance issue. And I was right on that instance. And
Wow.
every day, young men and women in the intelligence community are making decisions like
This is
that.
like that.
They're in their late teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the
Wow.
book, The Woman's War. I wanted to call it War on Any Given Day because on any given day, if you do not analyze an unfolding crisis correctly, a war or
Yes.
crisis could break out. And
Yes.
as we
Yes.
sit here, there are young men and women who know most people will never know their names or even what they're doing, are
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing right now, keeping us safe. And the fact that since 9/11, we've never had a major attack on our soil by the Islamic fundamentalist terrorists is largely due to the effort
That
of these
intelligence.
unnamed men and women. And that's another thing that usually brings me to tears, the fact that so many young people are working. You work horrendous hours. Uh, sometimes you just do shift work, like I on the example I mentioned. But even then, on your days off, so much was going in. You had to come
Uh-huh.
in to check to keep up
Right.
to date.
Right.
So there, like I said, it brings me to tears when I think about what these young men and women are doing to keep us safe.
Well, we thank them for their service, and Captain Harris, we thank you for your service as well. First of all, thank you for that class in intelligence. I don't think people really realize what goes into um, this whole thing about keeping us safe. There's a whole thing to it that we have no idea about, and how people really put themselves in harm's way to keep us safe on a daily basis, a minute to minute safe, second to second. If you can answer this, and if you can't, I'll understand. How do you feel about the war ending, and President Biden's decision to do that and the execution of that? If you can, I know,
Yeah,
people
actually,
stay
I
away from
can.
politics.
As my
Okay,
late
I didn't
mother
think
would,
so. Okay,
no, as my late mother would say, I must be psyche, or that's how she pronounced psychic.
okay, okay.
And there's a couple of things. First off, uh, that this is no surprise. Uh, in May of 2018, there's this organization that Congress set up, Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. And every 3 or 4 months, they put out a report, which is unclassified. And they have been saying, I pulled this out uh, because of the May 2018 one. And let me see. He talks about stabilization, which was one of our primary missions there. He says it's a political endeavor involving a civilian military process to create conditions where locally legitimate authorities and systems can peaceably manage conflict and prevent a resurgence of violence. John Sopko is the inspector general, and they put out the report. And he was giving a talk, I think, at the Brookings Institute. And let me see if I can find the thing that jumped out at me. Unfortunately, SIGAR's overall assessment is that despite some heroic efforts to stabilize insecure and contested areas in Afghanistan between 2002 and 2017, the program mostly failed. This happened for a number of reasons, including the establishment of a set of unrealistic expectations about what could be achieved in just a few years' time. And I say that, bring that out to say this. I went every year, the Aspen Security Institute hosts a security
Mm-hmm.
forum.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you have people like the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, all these people are there. And they gave a talk they had a panel on Afghanistan. And one well known newscaster, I won't say her name, was head of the panel. And this was in the summer. And I was I was doing blogging. And so I was covering it for Lima Charlie News Media. And the guy asked me, said, Gail, I feel guilty about your going back to your hotel room and putting out a big report. Why don't you just tweet? And so I tweeted, I said, it was a good panel, but I was surprised that they didn't bring up that report. And that's about all I said. And I'd say within 5 minutes, my phone, text and the editor of Lima Charlie, call me immediately. And I went out and he says, does that newscaster hate your guts? I don't think she knows me. And he said she'd sent out a tweet. It was something, I can't remember exactly what it was. Something about fat, old, retired military people upset because
Oh
nobody
no.
them asked a question. It was really insulting.
Oh
And
no.
my editor said, we'll handle this however you want. And so I said, okay, let's keep the high road. My dad always said, keep the high road. So I said, no, actually, I wasn't upset. I said, I'm not so intellectually vain to think in a room full of people that someone's going to see my raised hand and call me. I had a question, and Congressman Adam Schiff, who was there, I went up
In
to him
California.
afterwards and asked him. I said, and he's now the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. I
Uh-huh.
said, Congressman, did you see that report? He said, yes, I did. And I said, I was surprised you didn't talk about it. It talked about, how unsuccessful our results there were a failure. And he said, yes. He said, I've seen it and I agree. And we need to relook how we do Afghanistan. And then that's another whole story. I had come up with how I thought we should be doing. And I know he's saying, who's this crazy old lady talking to me? And the reason why I say that is no one in Congress should be surprised that our results in Afghanistan were unsuccessful. The only challenge, the problem that I have, people saying, well, the intelligence community, we can't read all the intelligence reports, obviously, without classification. But every year, the intelligence community puts out an unclassified intelligence report. And what they said about Afghanistan is usually put out in early winter. We assess that prospects for a peace deal will remain low during the next year. The Taliban is likely to make gains on the battlefield, and the Afghan government will struggle to hold the Taliban at bay if the coalition withdraws support. Kabul continues to face setbacks on the battlefield, and the Taliban is confident it can achieve military victory. Afghan forces continue to secure major cities and other government strongholds, but they remain tied down in defensive missions and have struggled to hold recaptured territory or reestablish a presence in areas abandoned in 2020. So the only thing that
Wow.
I'm just
Wow.
guessing that the intelligence community wouldn't have been able to give them the exact timing. But I'm sure if this is what they're putting out in unclassified reports, they knew it was going to be an issue. The only major concern I had, are the evacuation of the Afghanis that worked with the U.S. forces. And this in itself is not a new problem. There have been many, many people working for quite some time to get special immigrant visas, not only for people who assisted us in Afghanistan, but also Iraq. Like the organization No One Left Behind comes to mind as one of the many groups working very hard. So just looking from the outside in, and as Colin Powell would say, you should never try to think you know more than the on-scene commanders. But in terms of speeding up the special immigrant visas, that's the only issue that I have questions with, that I would have hoped would have started much earlier
Earlier than,
in breaking
yeah.
down the immigration issues. And that is a major concern of mine, of what's going to happen to those people if they can't get out of Afghanistan, what kind of
I think
retribution they might face.
I think the last I heard, it's less than 100 people that still have. I think there was 2 planes that left yesterday, and there's some planes that'll be coming over in the next week or so. I know we have to wrap up in a few minutes. Let me just say this. I love intelligent people. I really, really do. And I love when intelligent people talk about what they know with a sense of confidence. And I just have to say, you should be on CNN or MSNBC or something talking about this.
Oh,
And
I
I
have
really
a couple
applaud
of
you.
times. I think
Okay, I must have missed it
no,
because I
friends of
keep
mine,
seeing it on 24 hours a day.
well, let's put it this way. When my book came out, I went through some press training. And
Okay.
part of it included being interviewed, just training interviews with real world producers. So I went to one network, and so I started giving my background. And basically, she said, I don't give a bleep about your background. I want to know, can you talk in interesting sound bites? So I had paid a lot to be at that forum.
Yeah.
After that, I left
Yeah.
and I went to see Wicked on Broadway. I think what they like in talking heads, they like people who are controversial.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
nerdy. I'm going to give
Okay.
you the facts, the background, stuff you can double check. Like these things,
Just the facts.
the annual worldwide threat assessment is unclassified and available. So are the reports on Afghanistan from the Inspector General.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the real world media, I have been disappointed in their coverage on many national security topics.
I've heard that from when I'm watching TV, that many of them do not like this. Okay, Renee, as we wrap this up, did you have any a last question or comment for our esteemed guest
Well, I
today?
do. Well, first of all, Gail, you know you're coming back because next year when we do Women's History Month, Black History Month, we're gonna have you come back because I think, as I shared with Kim, I said anybody that's on Wikipedia is the bomb diggity, and she is on Wikipedia, folks. So, A Woman's War is a very intense book, but it's a book that's worth reading. And I said this to Kim in the green room before and I may have said it briefly when we came live. She mentioned about how, as a woman, as a black woman in particular, that you can still achieve in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I shared with Kim what you're doing now, what you've done this summer. And I'm just really proud of you. Talk to the audience about what you do, because someone's going to Juilliard. I'm like,
Yeah,
when you shared
yeah.
that with your audience, I was like, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, Juilliard, since I grew up in the New Jersey and the part of the New York metropolitan area, I always knew that they had an evening program, or now they call it an extension, where regular people can go. And not, I mean, you still have to, for some of the courses, like composition or music theory.
Hmm.
For the composition course, I had to be interviewed by three very well-known Juilliard professional professors and submit copies of my work. Uh, so I just decided that I wanted to study music. And when I'm doing the interview, I don't play an instrument or anything. And with these people, and I said, I will do whatever I need to do. I said, I have this music in my head and I want to study at Juilliard to find out how to put it down in a format that people can access. And I was honest. And I said, I'm
That's
working on a
awesome.
Broadway musical and I want to be able to know how to do the
Oh,
music for it. And they seemed
okay.
to that resonated with them, and I've been taking music theory and classes start again next week. I'm taking Introduction to Jazz Arranging. I had to again submit copies of my work. Karen, you like this. I expected an interview. I suppose, submit copies of your work. The interview, you ask you about your work and your background. Instead, I got this 4-page test. And they said, it's got to be done by 2 o'clock your time, or we won't consider you. I'm going, ah! So I did it. I said, oh.
Wow.
Well,
Money
when you
screaming.
create your musical, Gail, don't forget my podcasting sister over here, who is an actress, and you know how to sing. So just keep your sister in mind, because I would
I
love that.
will. There is a role for you.
Well, you have
Thank
inspired.
you.
You're inspired me, as Kay Renee said. I have recently started acting. Um, just finished a play, getting ready to do another one, Streetcar Named Desire. Although I don't get to say Stella, I'm excited about being in the play. So everybody, every time I tell somebody, they go, "Oh, you?" I said, "I'm not Marlon Brando, it's Stella." So, but I'm gonna have to hear it 1,000 times before the end of the year. But you have been you are inspiration. Tell everyone about the name of your book and how to get it,
It's
please.
called a woman. It's a woman's war, and it's a professional memoir as opposed to personal. And you can get it on Amazon.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I just want to thank you for your service. I know people say that in jest, but as you explained, the dangers that our men and women in service go through to keep us safe. We shouldn't take that for granted. And I
Yeah.
believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Captain Gale, only 1% of the American public serves in the military. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's something like that, and that's to
Right.
give the mainstream media their due. That kind of explains why they really the poor, in my opinion, poor reporting specifically on the intelligence community, because how to make sexy staring at a laptop watching information come through. or to talk
Yeah.
about it. They
Yeah.
don't make many movies about people like that.
Right.
So
Right.
you're right.
Right.
And so I think education is the key. And I'm always encouraging young people to come into the profession. You don't have to be in the military. I think in the Department of Defense, the majority of intelligence professionals are civilians.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to join, but we do need
Mm-hmm.
intellect. When I see diversity, we need the intellectual diversity. We need people who can put their minds in, see the world through the eyes of the potential enemy. Not think like an
Mm-hmm.
American, think like someone from some other country. Quick example I use: if I'm speaking, I say, "Do you think I'm dressed sexually provocative?" And the answer is always no. And I say, "In parts of the world, I am." So I said, if you
Right.
can't
Right.
understand why somebody would find a woman in her 70s
Right.
sexually provocative the way I'm dressed, then how can you do analysis on what that country's goals and aspirations are? So you
Right.
have to. So we need
Right.
young minds, flexible minds. Not old dinosaurs like me.
Well, I don't
Oh,
think that
you're
you're.
not a
I don't think you're.
dinosaur,
Yeah, I
sweetie.
don't think you're a dinosaur. I have gained another kind of perspective. I want to thank you again for your service. Thank you for your time this morning. You made me already feel guilty saying you're getting ready to go bicycle riding or something, and I just went and had a very hearty breakfast this morning. But I do plan on doing some sort of walking today. Okay, Renee, did you have any parting words for our esteemed guest?
Well, Gail is my sister, and I am just, anytime when I can bring people on to our platform to speak their truth, to speak their authentic self, it gives me so much pride. And Gail, we go way back, and I
Yeah,
love
we
you
do.
dearly. I'm
I
just
love you too.
continue so proud of you, of your service, and you have been just an inspiration always to me. And I cannot wait to come to Durango because I'm coming. So
Well, you bet. I was telling
regardless,
you my place. We'll go bike riding.
yes,
Oh
yes,
wow!
yes. I haven't been bike riding in years, so I will definitely do that. And if there's anything that you need from us, please don't hesitate to reach out to us because and have a being a black woman in intelligence. That's a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother subject that I think
Uh-huh.
people, especially people of
Uh-huh.
color, need to understand what we
Uh-huh.
sisters have to go through being in the military, and especially in the rank that you had. So coming back. So I just want to say I love you. Have a wonderful Saturday, and we're thinking of you and
You as
all
well.
other members who've given up their service for us to
And
keep
if
us
I
safe.
can ever help you guys, I mean, I don't have to be on the podcast, but if I can ever help you out in anything, a little research or point you in the right direction on some topic, military related, happy to help.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful and
Thank
blessed
you,
day, and please
sweetie.
be safe.
Bye bye.
Mwah.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye, hun. Oh my God. We
Yeah.
got an
Wow.
intelligence lesson yesterday.
Wow.
That.
Wow. I
How
feel like
about that?
I went to school. I feel like I went to school on that. We just, of
Even.
course, want to continue to give a special thank you to those men and women in uniform. We want to
Mm-hmm.
give a special thank you to the men and women who are intelligence, non-uniform people who work on those things to keep us safe. We want to send a special prayer to the family of Michael Williams. As many of you know, Michael Williams was the gentleman who was Omar on The Wire. He was Bunky Johnson, I believe, on Boardwalk Empire. He was just in a movie as when they see us, which was about the exonerated five out of New York, and he was also in a great show that you all should watch, Lovecraft Country, for which he was just nominated for an Emmy. He was a wonderful actor. Um, I mean, I was in a clubhouse room with some friends of his, people who had known him, who had worked with him. Some people had worked on The Wire, and I mean, it was sad. People were openly boohooing, but people talked about the love that this man gave out. And I have to tell you, Kay, many people in that room did not feel that he died of a drug overdose. Many people felt that he was murdered. And these were close
Oh
friends of his.
wow.
So I don't
Wow.
know. I don't know, but I mean, one of his friends, and I knew that he was very close with Michael because on his Instagram there are pictures of them. I mean, together.
Mm-hmm.
This was his close friend, and he says, "My friend." He said this emphatically. My friend did not die of a drug overdose. So I don't know, but he leaves a legacy of work, and he leaves a legacy of love. He leaves a
Most
legacy. I mean,
importantly,
yeah, he
that's
people
important.
love that man. I mean, they would, and if he had never made a movie, if Michael had never made a movie, he would have been loved. I mean, you could feel it. It was we were on there about
Oh
three
yeah,
hours.
I mean the tributes to all across the board, from celebrities to the average person, truly loved Michael, and the ancestors have welcomed him with love. You know, we're going to be talking about, and as we kick off our season here, not only new day Saturday mornings at 11 a.m.
11
So be
o'clock Central
sure
Standard
you'll be
Time.
Central Standard Time for those who are in the Midwest, noon on the East Coast, and
10
10
o'clock.
o'clock a.m. on the West
Nope,
Coast. But
9 o'clock.
we uh 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Oh, 10 o'clock a Mountain Stand Time. Yeah, nine
Yeah.
o'clock. Thank you, Kim. We're gonna get it together. This is our
We'll get it together.
new
Everybody,
format that we're.
hopefully this daylight savings times is going away. Maybe we can get that petition going. That'll be one of our candid
Well,
conversations. And let me
well,
also
we'll
say
we'll
this.
have that.
Maybe also say this. I was the families. I don't know if I mentioned this, Kay. If I did, then let me repeat it. The families of those people that died on 9/11, the 3,000 families, we pray for them. There was a young
Yes.
African American lady who just got the remains of her mother this week from the Twin
Wow.
Towers. This week.
What?
Yes. Yes.
It took that
Yes.
long?
It
It
took
makes you
that
wonder.
long. It took that
Wow.
long. And there was another lady that I never knew. And I don't know if she was Hispanic or African American. I never knew she was the last person that they took out from
Yeah.
World
They
Trade.
talked
She
about
was in there for 27
7
hours.
hours. Yes.
27
Robin
hours.
Robin Roberts Robin
Right.
Roberts interviewed her the women 9/11 Wednesday night. So,
Right.
and let's not, and before there are some other transitions we want to talk about before we close this episode, let's talk about the documentary that Spike Lee you want to highlight as well. Go ahead.
Right. There's a documentary on 9/11. There's two things I want to mention. There's a documentary on 9/11 or it's really on New York and about the pandemic and 9/11. It's a four-part series. And it's sad in some ways, but Spike gonna be Spike. He bitches Morehouse and NYU and all these things, Brooklyn, it's very informative. Also, there is a podcast called Into America that I highly recommend. And the last episode talks about the 11 Black firefighters that died on that day. And it
Mm-hmm.
is an emotional um, tribute to those 11 that worked, I believe, out of the Manhattan, one of the Manhattan places, firehouses. And the gentleman who was being interviewed says that the 11 firefighters were really you rarely see them. I mean, I thought there was one or two blacks that died that day. It was 11.
Mm-hmm.
And what really made him upset, I don't know if you remember this, Kay, was a couple weeks after 9/11, Rudy Giuliani was on SNL and he had the firefighters behind him. And there were no black firefighters behind him. So it was as if we didn't do anything to sacrifice for this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it really made that firefighter upset. So it's important to note, it is important to note, I believe there were two black flight attendants that got killed on that Shanksville. I know it was at least one. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important to note that, we had 11 firefighters there in New York, and I'm sure we had some in the Pentagon, not sure about Shanksville, who gave up their lives, you know, and I know we got to go. But one of the things the lady said was, she said, when they call them, to come. Many of them were off that day, and they knew that plane had hit the World Trade Center, and they said with 40 or 50 equipment on their backs, we're going up. We're going up to get the people. And they knew that the chances of them were coming down was slim to none. And it's incredible to me. So it's incredible.
Even in crises, though, unfortunately, there's still remnants. I mean, they say eradicate racism, they're still there. Even in crises, even what has happened 20 years later. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it now, even with what's going on here in the pandemic, what's happening all over the world. We just have to stay mindful. Again, our prayers, not only we're commemorating today. September marks Self-Care Awareness Month and also Suicide Prevention
Mm-hmm.
Month. And we want to make sure that all of our viewing, listening audience, if you feel a certain way, talk to someone. This day of all days, it
Mm-hmm.
can bring up so much emotion
Much.
for
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah.
So we want to we remiss if we speak on, talk to someone that you need to let go of that emotion,
Yeah.
because in our coming episodes we're gonna be really getting serious, y'all. So get ready. And we have a few minutes to talk, but in talking about transitions with Michael K. Williams, I want to also mention Allison Payne, Chicago's very own,
Yes.
who is
Yes.
just a wonderful anchor here in the Chicagoland area
Yes.
on WGN TV. We found out
Yes. Yes.
yesterday that she made her transition. She actually transitioned on September 1st, but at the age of 57. But she was well known here in
Yes.
Chicago
Yes.
and definitely well loved. We also want to Ed Asner, who was
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
gruffy old newscaster in the Mary Tyler Moore Show,
Yeah.
recently left us at the age of 91. Michael
Mm-hmm.
Constantine,
Mm-hmm.
Big Back Wedding. He's a character actor. You may not know the name, but if you see his face, you're like, oh, I remember
Mm-hmm.
him.
Yeah.
He left us at 94. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
be, honoring those famous and maybe not so famous during this kickoff season of K&K. And before
Yes.
we close, we got a special segment called, what's it called, Kim? You can tell the audience.
Let me get candid for a moment.
Let me get candid for a moment. Now, I alluded to earlier today, this in the beginning, of what happened this summer. Now, most of you know who follow me on Facebook that on the 4th of July, America's independence, something happened to me really, uh, where my drywall crashed in my second bedroom. And through the grace of God, and God is always imminently and everly present in our lives, and I know this for a fact, because had I been sitting in a certain place in that second bedroom, I would have been injured.
Mm-hmm.
And just really grateful to God that I'm sitting here in my primary bedroom speaking to you all. Well, after that happened, you would think, that's why you have insurance, right? Well, here's the thing. My insurance carrier, the one that supposedly, I won't mention it, let me just say they use the slogan, you're in good hands. Well, I have not been in good hands with this insurance carrier. I'm getting real candid right now, and I'm going to tell you, sometimes you may have to go with those off-brand insurance carriers because they may do better than the ones that say you're in good hands. So that's I'm getting candid today.
Well, I'm glad that you got candid. Let me get candid for a moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as many of you know, the Texas state passed a bill that said a woman cannot get an abortion after 6 weeks.
Yes.
The reason why many of us are talking about this bill is because, number one, most women don't know that they're pregnant before the 6 weeks. It's usually
That's right.
6 weeks to 2 months. Okay.
That's right.
Men And the other thing is because it doesn't allow you to terminate a pregnancy if you are raped or if there's an instance of incest. Sorry. For it doesn't allow you to do abortion in any part. Okay. Now, I have no problem with people being pro-life. If that's how you feel, this is America, you have the right to feel that way. But this is where I get kind of pissed off. Franklin Graham, and I will not give him the honor of calling him Reverend Franklin Graham, post something on Twitter that said Republicans know how to make the economy better, they know how to create jobs better. I'm paraphrasing, because they don't give out stimulus checks and extra unemployment benefits. This is what he said. Now, this is a man that talks about anti-abortion all the time, anti-gay as well, but I won't get into that. Now, there's been a lot of talk from people about people getting extra unemployment benefits and how people are just sitting around getting unemployment benefits. To my knowledge, there was 9 million people at the peak of this that were getting unemployment benefits. And the extra unemployment benefits they were getting were under a Trump administration. The $600 initially and the $300 that came after that. And I believe there was 2 stimulus checks under Trump as well. So it's not just Democrats. The other thing is, you all say people are just sitting around getting unemployment benefits. Have you talked to every one of those millions of people that are on unemployment?
No.
Do you understand that there are people that have children who birthed them, who did not abort them, and they're using this money for food and clothing?
Yep.
They're using this money so that they won't get evicted. They're using this money so that they can have cars, and in some cases, just use it for bus fare.
Yes.
Now, please stop talking to me about being pro-life, because you're not pro-life. Because your idea is have the baby, and if you hit on hard times, that's on you. I don't know what your Bible speaks. I don't claim to be a Bible study, but I know what Jesus said. When you help the least of these, you honor me. That's in Matthew 25:40, I believe. That's the Bible that I read. That ain't Kim Coleman. That's Jesus. You all go around here talking about, just babbling about people not doing this. You don't know what situation people are in. They had a man that had just gotten a job and he broke his leg. And those unemployment benefits were helping him and his wife feed their 3 kids. The last thing I want to say is this. Therefore, by the grace of God, there go I. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know who holds tomorrow, and I know God's going to take care of me. I don't look down on people on get extra unemployment benefits or get food stamps or get stimulus checks. Because therefore, by the grace of God, there go I.
Amen.
So stop talk about you're pro-life. You're not. You're pro-birth. And that's my candid for today.
And on that note, ladies and gents, we thank you for watching Kandid Conversations with K and K. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kandid Conversations with K and K.
Yes.
Reach us via YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you can get your reminders. We will be here every Wednesday, every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. We will be back next week.
And catch Kay Renee and Art Sims Monday through Wednesday. Are you all doing the show Monday through Wednesday? On Art Show, the Chat Daddy Show. Catch her. They have some great guests and great great segments. And if you want to do a shout out about something, because everybody can't get it. Some of you all are government workers. You can't say what you want. Send something to our send something to our email address. That's Kandid Conversations with Kandid Conversations at
at
gmail.com. And we,
gmail.com.
as you can see, I have no filter. I don't think K Renee does either. So I will call out anyone. I have no fear. And I have some
That's
more to
right.
say as well. I held back today,
We will,
actually.
and we will be saying it. So again, ladies and gents, thank you so much for taking out a little time out of your busy Saturday to spend with us on this commemorative Saturday in 9/11. We honor
Right.
everyone who has been affected. We send the families love, peace, strength, and healing as you go forth, and know
Yes.
that God is always able. He's
Yes.
never left you by your side, and he will never forsake you. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And don't forget to pray, praise, and push. Kay Renee, if you can stay on after I end this broadcast, we love you all.
Absolutely.
And thanks again. Bye.
Bye guys.